I'd like to call now on Don Thomson to give his presentation.
Sorry. Thank you, Bob. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. As Bob mentioned, the International Ethics Standards Board for Accountants, IESBA, establishes high-quality, internationally appropriate ethics standards, and these standards are published in the Code of Ethics for Professional Accountants, what we refer to as the Code. And right now, I'm going to comment briefly on some of the issues in the Code that are relevant to a variety of stakeholders, but particularly relevant to professional accountants in small and medium-sized entities, SMEs, and small and medium-sized accounting practices, SMPs. IESBA has worked hard to develop and maintain a robust code and is now increasing its attention to implementation issues and the overall usability of the code. The board engages in a lot of outreach, and we have heard from a variety of stakeholders, and there are a number of issues that have come up, particularly from professional accountants in SMPs. First and foremost, we've heard very clearly that some of them are challenged either all the time or at least some of the time with a knowledge and understanding of the code. So professional accountants who are dealing with an ethics or independence issue and are not regularly referring to the code, if they don't have someone they can turn to in their organization who does have that familiarity, they are finding it sometimes a challenge to work through what is appropriate. This may be, this knowledge and understanding may be impeded by resource constraints, so lack of people or tools or the time to spend on the issues. In some circumstances, the external infrastructure is not readily available. In other jurisdictions, external infrastructures provide training or external advice to support the SMPs. But it does vary, even within a jurisdiction. In some locations it is more remote than elsewhere. Knowledge and understanding may also be impeded by a lack of familiarity with the code, which sometimes leads to a lack of confidence that all relevant material on a topic has been identified and appropriately applied. And another challenge that we've heard, particularly with very small SMPs, is dealing with safeguards. On the SME side, and SMPs dealing with SMEs, they sometimes have a challenge when they're providing non-assurance services in dealing with a management that is suitably informed and able to make informed judgments when they are exercising management responsibility. The board has considered these issues, keeps them in mind as it has developed its strategy and work plan. And one of the projects currently underway to deal with at least some of these issues is a project on the structure of the code. This project is focused on increasing the usability of the code, and we have a consultation paper that was just recently released. We're working towards an exposure draft in October of 2015. Some of the features that are being proposed, a forward dealing with how to use the code. So for people who aren't familiar, whether professional accountants or others, they will have that guidance in how to navigate the code. Taking greater advantage of electronic features to facilitate navigation through the code. And even where someone doesn't have electronic features available to them, the restructuring of the code should result in a more user-friendly structure to help people through the process. Topics are presented in a more self-contained manner so that people who aren't using the code on a regular basis are better able to get the comfort that they need, that when they are looking at an issue, they are seeing all that is relevant to them. and a purpose at the beginning of each section to set out the context for that section, the material in it. Requirements are being distinguished from guidance. So the guidance remains of critical importance. It is closely linked to the requirements, but the two are broken out separately so that people are able to more clearly distinguish the requirements from the guidance and understand the context of how things fit together. All this is within the framework of what we refer to as the conceptual framework that takes a threats and safeguards approach, requiring the application of professional judgment. We have heard from some stakeholders, SMPs, regulators, others, that sometimes the guidance in the code is not applied in a way that takes into account the conceptual framework. And so we are increasing the prominence of that to avoid people dealing with examples without thinking about the bigger picture of what is important. Other features, clarity of language to facilitate translation and also just improve overall readability, and a clear communication of responsibility for compliance so that the reader of the code is able to understand what is applicable to them. And what is being considered there is working with an expectation that firms will establish appropriate policies and procedures to enable identification of who at a firm is responsible for compliance in a particular circumstance. Another topic that is underway right now is on non-assurance services. This one is close to completion. There has been an exposure draft, and we are looking at finalization in the near future. This project has covered a number of areas, including clarification of the importance of informed management when management is taking responsibility, and sets out criteria so that people don't simply go through a rote exercise of having management take responsibility for decisions that belong with management. So the code had guidance before. That guidance is being clarified and enhanced so that we have a better perspective on what is appropriately management's responsibility, how that is exercised, and differentiated from what an auditor, a person in an audit firm may provide. The project has also provided additional guidance on the meaning of routine or mechanical services. This is primarily relevant to accountants providing accounting services for entities other than public interest entities, and focuses on clarifying that routine or mechanical services are ones that require little or no professional judgment from the professional accountant. So that clarity should improve the consistency of application of that guidance. And a third feature is withdrawal of provisions for emergency exemptions from some of the requirements and expectations in the code. And so that's really increasing the rigor of the code and avoiding what is believed is an issue that people can find ways to deal with in normal circumstances. Another topic that the board is looking at is safeguards. At this stage, there's not a project approved, but we are looking at a project to review safeguards, enhancing the clarity of what constitutes a safeguard, and looking at the appropriateness and effectiveness of safeguards applied to particular threats. These initiatives are intended to make the code more robust, more readily understood, and more consistently applied. So in conclusion, in implementing the code effectively, we've got ongoing outreach that is taking place. We believe that we are being responsive to the issues of stakeholders and others on these topics. Complementary materials, which may well be appropriate, will follow along after the code restructuring has been finalized. That will enable us to more clearly understand what complementary materials work best. In terms of other issues faced by SMPs and professional accountants and SMEs, we believe that they can be supported by working together, whether with other SMPs or working with member bodies to enhance the learning process, to obtain advice on issues where appropriate. And the board is keeping that in mind as it continues with its outreach and liaison programs. So thank you, and I certainly, on the structure of the code project in particular, I welcome any input that any of you may have. As I say, the consultation paper has been published, and I look forward to your input during the comment period.
Thank you, Don.